Good morning. Welcome to Kila Chari Torah's daily review of Maimonides' 613 Mitzvot, the Sefer HaMitzvahs, for Thursday, November 18th. We are shifting gears just a little bit, and we're going to talk for the next half dozen mitzvahs or so about the idea of a Nazir, a Nazirite. You remember Samson, Shimshon HaGibor, that's discussed in the Navi, that's took a vow, as a Nazirite does, not to shave his, not to cut his hair. Also, the additional prohibitions taken on have to do with avoiding contact with a non-living body, with the dead, and also the prohibition of drinking wine or anything related to that, even grape juice and so on. So we'll see what those mitzvahs are. This is not a requirement of Torah that someone become a Nazirite. If they have some kind of religious urge, a desire that pushes them, let's say, to take on extra measures of religiosity, observance, that there is this option available to them for a month's period is the minimum period for Nazirism. And actually, as I say, Nazirism, it reminds me that when we do the Hataras Nedarim, the nullification of vows on Erev Rosh Hashanah, we mention specifically Nazirism. If a person took on a vow somehow or behaved as if he or she were taking on the status of Nazirism, abstaining from these major interactions with the world, so then that's a vow that we need to be released from also. You don't find it too often nowadays. There are some people who observe some of these practices, not necessarily all of them, and their status as a Nazirite is an interesting subject of discussion in halacha, because the conclusion of Nazirism involves bringing a korban chatas, actually a sin offering, at the conclusion of the Nazirism period, and expiating the sins. Interesting conversation. What exact sin did they do when they went beyond and took on more restrictions than the Torah actually requires, even though it's within Torah itself? Okay, it's an interesting conversation, and it's a full tractate all on its own. So, Amir Hashem, one day we'll get to study that together also. Let's talk about a couple of the prohibitions, a couple of the negative commandments associated with Nazirism. A Nazirite is forbidden from drinking wine or any kind of strong drink of which grape juice is an important ingredient. Neither shall he drink liquor of grapes. That's what the verse says in Numbers chapter 6, verse 3. Is taking this prohibition so far as to lay it down and declare that even the wine or the strong drink of which wine was an ingredient, if it's turned sour, if it's turned to vinegar, a Nazirite still should not drink that. No vinegar, strong drink, that's a separate commandment apparently. Drinking no wine, no vinegar of wine, there'd be two different ones, but no vinegar of wine is a complete prohibition of wine, explains the explanatory note here. The tractate, the Gemara that I mentioned before, Nazir, tractate Nazir, explains that the liquor of grapes is intended to indicate that the taste of the grapes is tantamount to the substance itself. Okay, so actually it is one prohibition here. That's the maskana, is that wine and vinegar, which are both obviously great products, that's one prohibition according to Maimonides' reckoning. However, a separate prohibition, in other words, a person will be a potential Nazirite would be subject to punishment on two counts of violating the vows of Nazirism. If the person ate fresh grapes, should not eat fresh grapes. That's a separate prohibition, number 203. So a wine and cheese party where he's nipping a few grapes off by the camembert there, that's two prohibitions right there. Okay, and in case you were, let's anticipate the next question, eating dried grapes. If a Nazirite eats raisins, dried grapes, he's also liable for violation of his vows of Nazirism. Okay, couple of more along these lines. We will save those for tomorrow, so please tune in tomorrow, and we'll continue this conversation. Have a good day. Bye-bye.